Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prove All Things. It's good to be here on our third broadcast. We are very excited to join everyone out there who's watching on Facebook and on YouTube and watching in our app and the various places you're watching. So we are so happy to have you. I'm joined today with co-host here, Mike James. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Jeff. How's it going? Good to see you.
Doing good. It's been a pretty interesting week. We've had some problems at our headquarters. It's kind of slowing us down a little bit in some of the things that we're doing. Found out because of the extreme weather in Texas that there was a water leak that had occurred, a pipe leak had occurred, and the entire building, our entire office was flooded. It looked like on the videos, at least I saw, like it may have been 5, 6, 7 inches high, and they had to tear out all the floors this past week, and they're just waiting on contractors and insurance adjusters and all those that they can get in there to kind of get it fixed. But what that means for a lot of people who follow us or who are getting things from us, there may be some delays, and I would say most likely delays for receiving literature and receiving CDs, but they're going to work as fast as they can to get back up and running. And so prayers are appreciated for those who are out there, who follow us and who support what we're doing at the Church of God International.
Definitely. It was a rough week down in Texas. I mean, that storm was really something. You guys got temperatures down in Texas that we have not even seen up here in Maryland this year. Once in a while, we get down to 0 or below 0 every few years or so, but it hasn't happened this year. So Texas was really hit this year.
Yeah, and I just had showed a little video. You can see Blake Silverstein standing by, and we're going to say hello to Blake. How are you doing, Blake?
Hey guys, good to see y'all. Thanks for inviting me to be on with y'all.
Good to have you, Blake.
Silverstein is from the Christian Educational Ministries and has been a speaker in Tyler several times and several feast sites, and has been on Bring on the Sabbath and other things that we do. So a lot of you should know who Blake is, but if they don't, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Blake?
Certainly, be happy to. So I'm currently the acting general manager and chief financial officer for Christian Educational Ministries, and kind of manage the day-to-day operations here at CEM. And that took place about 3 years ago now. That came on board, and really just been managing everything here since then. I attend Katy Christian Fellowship, ordained minister just recently there. And like you said, I come up to Tyler and I give messages up here as well, and really just a brother in the faith, as it were. So happy to be here with you guys.
Good to have you, Blake.
Yeah,
good to have you.
We had a heck of a storm, like you were talking about. As we were talking about before the broadcast. It was. I thought it was something that everyone across the nation was experiencing, something like this. It was just that Texas wasn't that prepared, and you guys said, no, this is all you. What y'all had going on was a complete different thing that we were experiencing, and just a normal old storm for y'all. And for us, we were. We were grabbing our cowboy hats and getting to it, trying to figure out how to shovel snow and all that stuff. So it was luckily here at CEM headquarters we were spared any kind of burst pipes and nothing damaged here on site. My home as well was I have a home here in Tyler and a home in Houston, and that was, both homes were protected. We lost power in Houston. I think we were going to do this session last week. You were going to have me on, but I couldn't because I was sitting in the dark in my office in Houston, so that wouldn't have really helped out with the broadcast here. So, anyways, so that storm we've been still trying to reel from getting back to normal, getting back into the swing of things. We just got back to the offices yesterday, and pardon my internet connection. I don't know if it's something that they're still trying to figure out. So if my connection goes down and I freeze in the moment, just stand by. I should come back.
Okay. All right. We'll be, hopefully that won't happen. It looks like you got a good connection right now, at least.
Good deal.
So prayers for that as well. That we'll have a good show today.
Certainly, absolutely. Let's pray for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know how. Yeah, I saw some of the other programs. So, you guys are. I when you reached out to me, it was really. This is important, Jeff and Mike. I think that having a program that's something that's more. My wife was asking me, "What is this? How is this different than the other programs?" And from what I told her, that we would be talking about more relevant. Let's say relevant. I would say more current issues. Let's say. And if that's what I gathered from our conversation, and then give a biblical worldview on some of those current events that are happening, as far as the Church of God is concerned, is a very valuable thing. So kudos to you both for tackling this.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. Jeff, I'd like you to just explain that a little bit more. This is only our third program, but when I think of BOTS, the Bring on the Sabbath program, I think more of a fellowship program. Mm-hmm. You get into some biblical topics, but here we've definitely got an idea in mind with the title of Prove All Things, that at certain points in the program, we're definitely going to address biblical items and address them from different angles, different nuances that they may bring forth, and explain why we think this is more of what God was saying than that was what God was saying in the Bible, and also in current events and the topsy-turvy world that we live in today. A lot of people being captured by this idea or that idea, trying to bring some balance to the various ideas that are out there, and looking at the various sources and trying to make sense of it, rather than just looking at these sources on this side or those sources on that side. Let's get a more holistic look at a problem or an idea that's happening. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I would say that is correct. That we are this program. I get compared to Bring on the Sabbath, because I definitely use the same background for Bring on the Sabbath. But Bring on the Sabbath is to share the culture of the Church of God. So we're trying to share our culture with people out there, and it's the culture of the Sabbath, and we're bringing on the Sabbath, and it's kind of just to share that culture. Well, this program, we're focused on proving all things, on looking at current events, looking at science issues, looking at different biblical issues, things that people have questions about. And can we prove all things? Can we prove this, or is this something that we don't have proof for? And we have to look at those issues, and hopefully with the people who are joining us online, we can maybe come to some conclusions, or at least get some ideas about some of these things that are very interesting. And some of the topics we may do may be things you wouldn't normally hear in a Sabbath service, I would think. So that's kind of what we're doing. And I do want to let everyone know out there that if you're watching on Facebook, you can make your comments known, and I can share the comments on the screen. I'm going to share one in just a moment here, just to give an example of what we can do, because we want to make this really interactive. And if you're on YouTube, also go to our YouTube channel, and we'll share the comments from there as well. So right now, I have just run. We have Rita says hi all. So we'll say hello to Rita.
Hey,
and
Rita.
We have Trudy, and we have some prayers are sent from different folks. And then Jeff here, he says, remember the little flock. So we have a lot of comments of people that we can just bring up. And so if you have a question or a comment, feel free to share it, and we may be able to put it and make it a part of this program.
Yeah, we've already upgraded, Jeff. We weren't able to do that last week, so kudos to you for getting that together. Thanks.
Yeah, so we definitely have an upgrade in our software, so we're excited about that.
I would like to say what I think you guys are doing here was important, because I was recently watching an interview with Dr. Jordan Peterson and one of his colleagues, who wrote a book called Infectious Ideas. So, and it's the concept that ideas are more, let's say, alive. Not they don't have they're not living and breathing, but they do have a way of spreading, kind of like viruses, is what this guy was talking about. And what I think what's going on here is you're providing a cure for some of those bad ideas that spread that we see, they just get overwhelming. They're infectious, and they're toxic. I think that's the word that Mike used. And so that our topsy-turvy world is right. And who is going to stand up against some of those incorrect ways of thinking that are very dangerous for people? And they do need to hear it about what's going on currently. Some of these things that are, because there's so many different claims that are happening now more rapidly than they've ever happened. And then as an informed individual, an informed Christian, we then kind of have this thing laid at our feet where we now have to go through and prove this thing or say validate it. And if there's too much, it's overwhelming for a Christian. It's overwhelming for me to have to chase down all these sources, the primary sources. It's almost like you wanted to throw your hands up and say, you know what, it's too much. And so to kind of take some of the bricks out of the briefcase for some of our brothers and sisters with prove all things, I think it's going to be extremely valuable moving forward.
Yeah, thanks for that, Blake. And I don't know if we'll prove everything on each edition of Prove All Things, but we will try to tackle these issues. Mm-hmm. And if it takes a couple sessions to figure things out, we will do the research and we'll come back. We don't always have the answers immediately, just like with the Bible. We've got to look into things. We've got to study and show ourselves approved. The same thing's true with stories out in the world today. We need to take our time rather than jumping to conclusions. Wait on a story. See how things play out before we come to conclusions on anything.
Certainly.
Yeah, definitely. That's important, and I see this every week. And so there's a reason why, I feel this is close to my heart about proving all things. For example, there was a person who I'm friends with on Facebook, and they shared a story, and the story was very much on the surface looked like it was in favor of their political candidate that they like. So it was very much like, oh, this looks like pro. So they shared this story, and so I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. I clicked on it, and it was a satire story, and it actually made fun of this person in the story of what they were sharing. So it's really, we got to be careful, because we may share something that we don't agree with if we're not careful in how these things work and stuff.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Good point. Yeah. So one of the things we're going to be doing, though, is having features like this where we have a guest like Blake today. And we're going to talk a little bit to Blake about what CEM is all about. Again, some people within the Church of God community know about CEM, but many do not. And we may have new viewers on today watching us, or they'll be watching the taped program. This is live right now, but it's going to be shown on our network a few more times. So, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us into conversation with Blake.
All right. So Blake, so we're here. We got you on Prove All Things. And so I guess we're going to have you prove something. So prove to us why Christian Educational Ministries still needs to exist. That Ron Dart has passed away. It's been a while. I mean, all this stuff's out there on the internet. You can find it on YouTube. You can find the books online and stuff like that. So why is there still a need for Christian Educational Ministries?
Yeah, I mean, don't put me on the spot or anything. No, no, absolutely. It's a great question, and it's a question that I asked when I came on board, point blank. To when I was hired, I literally interviewed with all of the board members individually, and I was very at the time I had a successful construction business for many years, and for me to jump up to Tyler and move house and all for, let's be honest, at that point, a dead person's ministry was a bit nerve-wracking. And I did ask the board members the same question, should CEM still exist? Honestly, is there anything that Ron can do from beyond the grave that no other minister at this point can do currently? And I had, when I came on board, I said, look, let me see your articles of incorporation. Once I was hired, I said, let me see the bylaws and kind of get into what was on Ron's mind and Larry Watkins and a handful of others as they started CEM, to see if that's still, if we can deliver on those initiatives and those declarations. And I went through them one at a time. There was 8 of them, and primarily it was under the umbrella of the Great Commission. And in order to fulfill on the Great Commission, these are the avenues we chose to take on. And everything that I read, save one, which it was, I think it was an intent it was basically about the ordination of ministers and the training and development of ministers from Christian Educational Ministries, which never really took place. We do offer a way for people to have a program for their small churches, but all those declarations of intent were still intact, and we could still deliver on them. And so, what does it look like for Christian Educational Ministries in a post-DART era? And what I found was the answer to that question was something that was very personal, Jeff, for me. Ron, DART is the reason why I'm a baptized Christian. I grew up around the church, and I was a young punk kid for a lot of years, and even after my teenage years, I was still a punk kid, trying to basically figure out every which way to not live life. Let's say, trial and error, and but Ron put to rest some of the things that were non-starters for me, some issues inside the Christian faith that I felt were incompatible for what I thought about, the way things should be, and a God that I had, as he calls it, the God of my imagination. And anyways, so Ron put to rest and answered some questions that caused conversion in myself. And I don't know if anyone else could have delivered it the way that he delivered it, in such a way that I was able to really internalize it, and then decide I want to become a baptized Christian. I want to go ahead, and that, coupled with other some other occurrences in my life, caused me to go ahead and take the plunge. And so then I said, look, this needs to be out there and available for other people. And so what we resolved to do at Christian Educational Ministries with the board and even the staff here was like, look, if God blesses this thing, in the form of, let's say, assistance and tithes and donations and prayers and communications, and if people are interacting with us and there seems to be a living, breathing thing happening here, then we'll continue. If he doesn't, we won't. In other words, we're not going to continue to pretend and put on like it's fine and dandy, let's say here, and continue to kick the can down the road. If this is not God's will. And so, anyways, I think it should still exist. I think that there are thousands of people every year that talk to us that think that it should exist. There are people who donate lots and lots of money so that we continue on to be a witness to the nations. We're currently one of the only terrestrial radio programs in the Church of God tradition that is evangelizing on terrestrial radio programs. We're on over 500 radio stations. We've grown since I've been here, sizably.
Wow,
Let me ask you a question.
That's surprising. Yeah, I wasn't aware that you've grown in radio stations. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
Yeah, I had a question regarding that. Is that effective? Because a lot of people think radio is not effective. That this is a waste of money or a waste of time, and no one listens to radio. Have y'all seen differently than that?
Yeah. So I was of the mind that it was a dying medium, a media, and in some ways it's not as prolific as it used to be, obviously, but it's not dying. It's even keel is where it's at after the research. When I came on board, I was kind of like of the mind, hey, look, I want us to get out of radio. I want us to lean into what's current. I want to lean into what's relevant, what's in front of people. And I changed my tune after actually doing the research, after really looking at it and getting the hard numbers on everything. and it actually is what's called even keel, right? So it's not growing, but it's also not dying. It's not contracting either. It's kind of this place where it's kind of static, and it's not so it's not the most viable source to disseminate, let's say, our messages, but it's good still. And also there are, because of its nature of it kind of contracting just a little bit, we get better rates. I can beat up our station managers a little bit easier. I could say, hey, look, I can just go online for all this. No, I'm kidding. But that is a part of my job, is to kind of keep the station managers in line, make sure they're not gouging us. But yes, we have grown. We are receiving. Here's the line in the sand. I always measure how many responses we're receiving from those people that are on that radio station. We always, whenever people call in, first thing we ask is, how did you hear about us? What's your radio station? And that way we can track our communications. And then I have a report that says, hey, look, we've received this many communications from this many people on this radio station. Here's the amount of donations from these individuals. Say what you want. If you can't manage what you can't measure. And so, measure everything, or continue to get all this data, aggregate all as much data as possible. And then I'll look at, over under. Are these radio stations self-sustaining? And are there, let's say that the station isn't taking care of all of the cost, but there's a bunch of people. We have a ton of radio stations in California, of all places, that people respond to us disproportionately. It's amazing. There's a lot of people there. But if I asked you the top 3 states in the union, that communicate with us, I don't think any of you guys would have said, California. I wouldn't have.
That's surprising to me, Blake. As I'm trying to put together cell groups throughout the country. So we have a mailing list, and I check out the mailing list to see where I may send letters to try to get a little group going. And I was surprised that Los Angeles County and that area did not have that many on the mailing list for being such a populous part of the country. So again, we aren't hitting that area as well as we'd like, but it's interesting that you through radio are hitting California. Any stats on Los Angeles County, Southern California that you could give me?
So I would say, the numbers on, so we had 86 new members from, this is up in Oakdale. And then nothing in actually, I don't have those numbers offhand, but I can give you offline. But yeah, I would say that what's going on in California is there's a lot of people that are listening to, there's not, let's not get political, but there's a lot of people that listen to us as a voice of reason and a voice of truth and appreciate that. And they need that, let's say. Jesus says, it's the sick that need a physician, right? And these people are being fed a diet of bad things, let's say. And so when you have someone come on the radio that's speaking sound, sensible, biblical truth, even on the Christian radio stations that we're on over there, Ron stands out. So I think people enjoy that. I can also, I know you're setting up those cell churches, by the way, which is awesome. Probably maybe even start asking people the question if they would be interested when they call in and meeting together in person with other like-minded folks. Maybe we could kind of help out and cross-pollinating. I know we
did. I think we've done a little of that in Tennessee. Blake helped me get a little group going there, a little cell group. And I'm all for that, Blake. That's why we have you on the program today, to keep those connections between the various churches of God going. Rather than fracturing more, we need to come together more. And this is part of what we're doing by bringing people on as guests on this program. No doubt.
Appreciate that. And I really do appreciate that. And, I did want to take a second just to brag on both you guys. I know flattery will get you everywhere. But no, seriously, both Jeff, and Mike have done a lot for the Church of God as a whole. And with the ideas and the initiatives you guys have taken on, Mike with the cell churches for sure, the Bible study programs, teaching that course just recently to really give back to the body. Jeff creating, new avenues for people to interact with us, to continue to put on and produce those programs that we're, this one included. And also with the app, the creation of this app, which has been hugely successful.
Are you talking about the fellowship app?
No, I'm talking about the CGI app, but I'm glad you brought up fellowship.
Well.
I was getting on the fellowship too. Fellowship was great.
Yeah.
An alternative to Facebook, to have people interact and talk about, biblical and things that are funny and kind of everything that Facebook is, but also with more of a, not having to worry about being censored, and also having a way for us to, stay friends. Oh, look, there's Skip Martin on there. You put Skip Martin on the great.
By the way, Skip will be on our program in March, so get ready for that, audience.
Oh yeah, hold on to your hats. That's right.
So that's going to be soon.
One other thing I'd like to mention, since you got into this, Blake, Jeff has also created a Swahili website for CGI that's being used by our African brethren, and also a Spanish website. And I see that our contact in Mexico has sent us a little Facebook note there. Saludos desde Mexico. So that's coming from our friend in Mexico that I've recently made contact with, and we're expanding. So continue, Blake. I wanted to ask you one thing, Blake.
Sure.
We had that comment from Skip about Ron's sermons, and I got to tell you that I do see how CEM is still making an impact because of who Ron Dart was. Again, I interacted with him a little bit in the mid-1990s when I traveled down to Tyler, Texas to attend Imperial Academy. It was kind of like a Bible school for people within the Church of God International. And he would give classes. Garner Ted Armstrong, Bronson James, Charles Gross, all these guys would give us classes. I learned a lot from all of those men, but I got to tell you, Ron Dart was just a teacher. He just had the gift of teaching what the Bible says. And I just got to make a plug for one of the books you guys offer, which is called Law and Covenant. And the reason I want to address this book, Blake, and I want you to speak about it a little bit, is this helped me understand the complex issue of God's law better than anything else I could find. And I wholeheartedly endorse this book for anyone who does not have it. If you want to understand the God's law and how to explain it to people who are Christians that don't believe we need to keep the law, that is the book to use. Blake, any comments?
So true. Absolutely. Yeah. A quote that pops out immediately in my mind is, the law of God is revelatory, not regulatory. It's like, what does that mean? Well, like, hey, the law of God is here to help you find out the way that things are, and to help you traverse the way that things are, not some club to beat you upside the head, and to regulate you into, and so that really, you're right. I mean, it really helps to center the locus of control for God is not through trying to be arbitrary, but trying to help you along. And you're right. Ron does this in such a way that he is not, he has a style and a tone that has a conversational feel to it without becoming too casual, and very conversational, and also, has his points, and that's all by design. He's masterful in that he knows that he can teach better if he is walking beside someone and not talking at someone. And that's from years and years and years and years of experience of giving sermons, teaching the Old Testament survey, the epistles of Paul. All of these things have created a style in Ron that allows for him to kind of cut through all of the other stuff and be a one-of-a-kind theologian. And again, kind of the answer back that question of, is it important that CEM still be around? Well, yeah, I think it's very important. And I think we should look at ourselves at CEM as more of a curator of Ron's communications. We have it's a little over 3,000 different self-contained communications, whether they be sermons, whether they be books, whether they be articles, essays, whether they be Bible studies from Ron, from 95 to 2006 or 2016. After his accident, he didn't put out as much clearly, but just in that period, he produced so much. He was prolific in what he was writing. And I think it was Skip that said, look, he knew he wasn't going to be around forever. And so he was careful not to date them. And he did. Again, he was very intentional. And even when he seems like he's being very casual, that is by design as well, to forward his ability to make a difference and teach people. And so anyways, I'm sorry, I'm digressing a little bit here, but I think that, yeah, his books, that and the thread, we're in the middle of, getting an audiobook version of the thread, because that's how people consume things nowadays, is usually through audio, or, they're not reading as much. So we're in the middle of getting an audiobook version of the thread, also getting it translated into Spanish. Speaking about your Spanish speaking person here, I'm kind of taking notes as to who that is, looking for help on trying to find out. And they see their Skip's, commenting on the thread is right. The thread is also one of the other books that Ron wrote that was really, I guess, the best stab at creating a case for why the holy days are important for a Christian to keep, how Christ is pictured in those holy days, and God's plan of salvation for man is found inside of them, and does it in such a way that's typical Ron, which is a great. It's fun to read. There's great anecdotes, and he has again the culmination of many years of experience to most effectively communicate and build a case for why the holy days are important. And anyways, so there it is.
Yeah, I've got a picture of the thread here too. So funny Skip should mention that. Another favorite of mine from Ron Dart, the thread, and also Law and Covenant. Really good reads for anyone who's new to the holy days, new to the law, and understanding it. And again, his sermons, his teachings, his program on those subjects, just tremendous teaching tools.
Certainly. And you men are, forwarding the action as well, giving messages and communications. And so I think that we're trying to make a difference where we can with what fields we have to make a difference in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I do appreciate how Ron was able to step back and look at something. And every time I would hear him, he would always look at something from a different angle that I'd never thought of that before. And so someone is really thinking and are really putting in the effort when they can tell you something. You're like, I never thought of that before. And so
definitely, Jeff, I second your opinion on that. I felt that way too. Yeah.
There's a lot of ministers, God love them. They have about 3 or 4 sermons. Kind of go back to the same 3 or 4 topics. Fair enough. We all have different talents, but Ron was a reader, and you could tell what was on his mind at the time. And I can kind of date some of the I won't have to even look at the sermons. I'll be like, I can kind of tell what phase Ron was in at this time per se, and so to speak. And anyways, he would cover a lot of different topics. And so that was really helpful. And he did it in such a way that excuse me here. Like Skip said, he would do it in such a way that didn't date himself too much. And a lot of these communications, these sermons will be, I see now, J. Vernon McGee, through the Bible, he passed away, and his ministry goes on. Billy Graham, another example of a ministry that's continuing to do good, even though the founder has passed away. And anyways, he would, I could give a kind of an introduction to one of the messages, say, hey, look, here Ron talks about the war in Afghanistan, or talks about President Obama, or something like this, where it doesn't completely make the message, unusable. But certainly we are, just to give one more thing about what we're doing, we're continuing to grow the radio ministry. Like Jeff, Jeff and I talk pretty regularly about how we are continuing to utilize the new tools that are out there to most effectively engage with people. One of the first things I did when I came on board was to create an app. And that was, it's been very successful. It's now one of the top ways people interact with CEM, and it's one of the most cost-effective ways. If everyone on the radio,
to me, Blake, that app is so valuable because you have all of Ron Dart's messages and studies and Bible studies. So there's so much value that people can get out of that free app.
It's kind of a selfish thing. I kind of wanted just to create it for myself. It's like, here, you guys can have this thing as well. But no, I think that, we both have been trying to ask this question of how do we do the most good with the least amount of money? Because so many people give us money and we have to really prayerfully use that money in a way that is highly effective. And if we could have everyone on the radio just use the app, I mean, that would be awesome. I could do so much more. But anyways, that's been really helpful. Also, it's been very surprising who's been downloading this app. I think we talked, Jeff, that, there's people that are in Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, people in Egypt, Sharia-ridden states, let's say, that are downloading a Christian Bible-based app. Is like, okay, so something is going on here. And there is some indication that there's some softening going on in the Middle East as far as the Muslim faith. It's being affected by the media as well. And so that's that's a crack in the door. Anyways, we could talk a long time about that, and I won't get into that. But anyways, we've been focusing on those types of things. And one thing that we've done that I'm really excited about this last year is we have grown our website visitors by over 30%.
Wow.
Which is huge.
That is big. That's big.
We are now just below Cagwa's website as far as website rankings, United, Cagwa, and then ourselves.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, which has been hugely effective as far as, people interacting with us, requesting programs. Because as you know, Jeff, this is the platform right now what we're on. This is the world stage, is the internet. And it's the 800-pound gorilla. Facebook, I'm increasingly more and more, well, I don't know if we're on Facebook, so I don't want to be, causing problems here, but
they're listening to us. Yeah.
That's the problem. But anyways, it's good. And just, we've been creating, more trying to do Bible study materials. And the last thing is that we're trying to continue to utilize some of these new social media apps as well. And our income, everything across the board has been up. So, the board's happy. And so I think I might be here for the next one. So hooray for that.
Great. So again, if anybody wants those books, Blake, of course they could go to the website. I mean, that's the place to go. Any plugs you want to make about the website or how to get a hold of you?
Sure. I'll put my email address up here. People, please feel free to contact me directly for anything. I have, one of the fun things I get to do is interact with a lot of our brothers and sisters, and that's always a bunch of fun. So I welcome the communications. Please feel free. Any question you have, I will personally handle it. And be happy to get you. What we are doing now is we're trying to give away everything for free. So, if you have something that you wanted to build a case for your church, doing something with the thread of Bible study, I'm open to anything. So, get at me.
All right,
Use
wonderful.
me up.
Very good. All right. Well, so good to have you be a part of our program today. And so as we're on here on Prove All Things, we like to look at different topics. And I believe Mike had a topic that we wanted to discuss last week. We didn't get to it, but definitely a very relevant topic and interesting topic. I think Blake may have some things to say about it as well. Could you let us know what that is?
Sure, definitely, guys. Again, since it's the month of February, we're still in February. The topic I was thinking about a couple weeks ago was Valentine's Day. And the reason it came to my mind was I was speaking to some people in the church. I deal with a bunch of churches in the Northeast, and an issue came up about New Year's Day. And the discussion centered around the fact, hey, I wanted to go visit my friends on New Year's Day, and we hung out because I had a day off. And someone considered that there might be some issues around that just because of the date of New Year's Day. Of course, originated in paganism within the Roman Empire. A lot of different traditions started due to that pagan celebration for the new year. But I make a distinction, and I want to talk about that distinction in a moment, but I just want to relate New Year's Day also to something like Valentine's Day. again, I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. I don't celebrate New Year's, but why the church looks differently at a date like New Year's and Valentine's maybe than we do towards Christmas and Easter. And before you guys comment, just a little bit of background on New Year's Day. Again, it's February 14th, but if you look this up in encyclopedias and things of that nature, you'll find that most scholars believe that Valentine's Day the origin of it was in something called the Lupercalia, which was an ancient pagan festival observed by the Romans from February 13th to February 15th. The holiday is said to have been named after one of two saints named Valentine who were martyred. There was another guy named Valentine or Valentinus, so you'll get different stories about how that name came to be connected to the date. And then Pope Gelasius I replaced Lupercalia with St. Valentine's Day in the 5th century to put an end to the pagan celebrations, which were extant throughout the Roman Empire. It was hard to uproot those practices. So again, just like I believe Christmas, which was a pagan celebration, the church kind of took it over, usurped it. I believe the same thing happened with Valentine's Day. A lot of information you can read out there on your own. But what I wanted to ask you guys was why we look differently at Christmas and Easter. Like, we don't want to take part in Christmas. We don't want to take part in Easter. Well, why is that different from a day like New Year's or Valentine's Day? I've got an answer I'm going to give you, but I'm going to throw it at Skip and Jeff. I'm not Skip, but Blake and Jeff right now, and see how you guys would answer that question that I was dealing with New Year's Day a couple months ago. How would you deal with the question, well, how is Christmas and Easter different from New Year's Day or Valentine's Day celebrations that are out there? And again, I'm not advocating for celebrating any of that. I don't. But do you see a distinction? And if so, why?
Yeah, I think that my question always, why do we do anything in life? It's like, why do anything ever? It's because we believe in those things that we do. And so, but the question you asked was, do I think there's a distinction between, let's say, you said Easter and Christmas, and then we have Valentine's and New Year's. And is there a separation between those two? And I think there is. I think, there is a hierarchy of egregiousness in how these holy days are kept and
well put.
There is, it's not all or none. And my wife would probably agree, hey, look, I think we might be able to go in for, Valentine's Day, but anyways, I think you have to do, this program is about this, proving all things, and really to yourself, understanding why you're doing what you're doing. Why do we do anything? Why are you doing this thing? And so I think it's a very, very transparent at this point as to the nature of Easter and to the nature of Christmas. I mean, it's beyond reproach that it's pagan holidays that were repurposed and co-opted by the Christian or the Catholic Church. So hey, fair enough. It's like that's an easy one for me. Not so much as New Year's and Valentine's Day. And then I asked myself this question, so what are those origins? As much as I can possibly figure out, because who knows, right? But as what I can research and find out, is this aligned with me as a Christian? And if it is, great, let's do it. And if not, I don't. And my wife, gets a little frustrated with that sometimes, but it is what it is. That's for me is to be true to myself, and because it's such a crazy world out there. But I think there is a difference between those two. One is, the others are Christmas and Easter are central to our faith. In the Well, the new covenant is a part of one of them. I mean, that's such a huge. As a Christian, it's like to start muddying the waters at all should be avoided at all costs. And Paul talks about this, and really pin some hides to the wall that try to allow for any of that to come into the church. And so I think there is. Anyways, Jeff, what do you think, my friend?
Well, thinking about this is that Christmas and Easter, those are directly holidays that people use to worship Christ. Right, they worship Christ on Easter, and it's a worship of Christ on Christmas. On New Year's Day and Valentine's Day, there's no worship of Christ involved. And I think of the scripture, God says, "Don't worship me the way the pagans worship their gods." And so that to me is maybe the major distinction, is those days aren't used to worship Christ now, but in effect they were used to worship other gods. They originated in that. And I guess the thing is, when we look at where things originate, and this is where we can get way too much, we can't do anything, is that a lot of what we have in our culture originates in paganism. A lot of things that we have in our society, a lot of cultural things, a lot of traditions are from paganism. So I would say that Christmas and Easter are definitely related to Christ, and these others, again, I don't celebrate them, but because they have that pagan relationship. So again, it's a matter of how do you look at that, and it's kind of like, do you buy meat that had been offered in the temple, right? Someone may buy that and bring it home and not worry about it, as Paul says. And like for me, like after say Halloween, candy's half off. Like candy's half off, right? So I'm saying, if I buy some of that candy, it's half off. I'm not celebrating Halloween, but it's that kind of idea. It's just like I like deals and stuff. So that's I guess my take on it. So what do you think, Mike?
Yeah, good points by both of you. And Jeff, you were mentioning what Scripture said. I'm looking at Deuteronomy Chapter 12, verses 29 through 31. I will use this one scripture. It says, "The Lord your God will cut off before you the nations you are about to invade and dispossess. But when you have driven them out and settled in their land, and after they have been destroyed before you, be careful not to be ensnared by inquiring about their gods, saying, 'How do these nations serve their gods? We will do the same.' You must not worship the Lord your God in their way, because in worshiping their gods, they do all kinds of detestable things that the Lord hates. They even burn their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods. See that you do all I command you. Do not add to it or take away from it." So definitely we have a biblical admonition not to mix, not to synergize, not to get syncretic with the religious practices. And we're doing that at Christmas. We're doing that at Easter. Now, of course, New Year's Day has a completely secular connotation today. There is no worship of Christ within New Year's. Valentine's Day does have some religious connection to some degree, but here's my bigger point. Here's the bigger point I wanted to make about all of this, and that is intentionality. When we think of New Year's and we want to, go out and get drunk, or, go to a party or whatever it may be, or you want to celebrate Valentine's because everybody else is doing it, or whatever it is, what those days are doing is they're obfuscating, they're hiding God's holy days. As we talked about the book, The Thread, that's my big deal with these other days, is Satan is so sophisticated. He's so smart. Okay, years ago, thousands of years ago, he knew that everybody else believed in all these various gods, so he could use that as his ploy. Today, he's trying to hide God's holy days through the use of New Year's Day celebration, Valentine's Day celebration, Halloween, Christmas, Easter. And to me, that's the bigger problem with these dates that the calendar has created for us, that the Roman Church has created for us, that's the secular society has created. I mean, they're practicing Christmas in Japan now, So it's like he's hiding God's holy days, and the sophistication, manipulation that mind brings into the world, I think, is the bigger issue here of those holidays versus holy days that we're looking at here. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's a great point. It's again, we were talking about this, the idea about infectious ideas, right? And you're either giving energy to that idea or you're giving credence and obedience to God's holy days, right? Let's say you only have enough energy for one or the other. You could probably do all of them, but you dilute some of your efforts. And I think you're pointing at something that's more esoteric, let's say, maybe, that, we keep these holy days not only because they're commanded by God, is because they are also going to continue to be more effective with people. They're going to continue to be more popular. And if you are a Christian, hopefully you're keeping them in such a way that people are pulled in. They say, hey, tell me more about that Feast of Tabernacles. That seems like a good time.
Yeah.
Or, hey, look, this seems like a really more sincere version of Easter that you guys keep over in Passover with this foot washing. It's really nice. This is awesome. And I think that if you continue to keep these other holy days, or these other holidays, let's, call them actually, people might kind of go, well, it's either or for this person. It's kind of wishy-washy, right? Where if you say, I don't keep those days intentionally because they don't align with what I believe, then they and I think too many Christians they're afraid of being salty dogs, let's say, they're too concerned with trying to be a cute kitten Christian. And it's, I think we should be more discerning, but without being a jerk, but just, a little more sincerity in what we do and why we do the things we do.
Good point, Jeff.
Yeah.
There's a good comment by Paul Randall. Can you bring that one up just as we start to close out here?
Here you go. You want to read that?
Yeah, the problem is not so much that traditional holidays are kept, but that the Sabbaths are not kept. My wife keeps those days, but don't constantly condemn her for doing that. And again, we're not condemning anyone of anything here. I've got people in my family who keep some of these days. I've learned over the years that being an example is much more effective. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. When I first got into the Church of God, I became anathema to many family members as a 18, 19-year-old hellion in talking about the Christmas and Easter and it's pagan and this and that. So I realized that wasn't the approach to take, that there's a better approach to take that's going to come across a little bit better and people are going to listen to you. And when I backed off a little bit, years later, I had cousins come to me and say that they had learned some details about Christmas and we were able to have conversations about it. So again, we're not here to condemn anyone. We're just here to talk about what the Word of God says and trying to abide by the Word of God as best we can. But you guys have some closing comments?
What I'd like to say, I guess, is that the holy days the holidays are counterfeits of the holy days. I've always heard that mentioned. They're counterfeits. And so I'm kind of glad God's holy days have not become commercialized like Valentine's Day or Christmas or Easter, because I just try, like, how can you imagine the Passover having Passover bunnies or Passover, candy and all the stuff that's associated with these holidays, or Feast of Tabernacles with all this. You go into a store and it's just covered with Feast of Tabernacles merchandise, or some dude that they invented to go with Feast of Tabernacles. So we don't have that. So it's kept pure, which is a really good thing that we have in God's holy days. So it's just one more comment, Blake, and we're getting close to the end again. Isn't that amazing?
It's great.
Time flies on this show, Jeff. Yeah.
So I'll give you the last comment, Blake, and then we'll have to say goodbye to everyone.
Certainly. Well, there's two things. One is, there was this book put out called The Rational Optimist, and it was really about why you are optimistic about the state of affairs in society right now as a whole. I think that's also something Christians should be rational Christian optimists. They should know why there is a hope found in us. And it should be on the tip of our tongue so much. Same thing with the holy days, right? We should be so ready to share with why we love our pure, like you said, Jeff, these pure, awesome crystallizations of Christ in a holy day, that people are compelled, they're drawn in, they're curious, as opposed to being, vehemently wagging our finger at them for keeping these other, pagan holy days. I think it was Ron who said, "What's not pagan? The pagans are eating breakfast. Should we not eat breakfast?"
I learned that the soccer actually started in a pagan game with a boar's head. So
yeah, that's right. What do we not do? It's about focusing on what we're for, what we stand up for, as opposed to what we're against. What are we for versus what we're against?
Yeah,
and
people definitely relate more to that.
But we're loss adverse. So people listen for more of the other. They listen for the negative. So it takes more effort to stand up for the positive, is what this guy is postulating in his book. To be a rational optimist, you must be on your game. You must be so almost over the top as a Christian, and really kind of flirt with that line, and yet not being Pollyanna about things whenever they are, pretty dismal and rough. But anyways, really enjoyed being here with you guys.
Yeah,
it's
definitely enjoyed it. We really only have 10 more seconds that we got to end because we got actually more programming coming up right after us.
Yeah, thanks, Blake, and thanks to all the audience. Great comments there in the chat box. Loved it.
So we're gonna have you back again, Blake, so we can continue these conversations and go over some things. So again, thank everyone out there for watching.
Spread the word.
Yeah, spread the word and continue. We're going to continue proving all things. So goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.